Hi everybody, welcome to a new edition of Let's Talk About Education with Antonio Corrales. We have heard about library science for years, but as you know, technology has changed library science during the past decades. A lot of you may ask, how do we apply library science in current schools? You have a lot of school principals, you have a lot of educators, teachers, and superintendents wondering, what is the role of library science in current schools with incorporation of technology? Well, today we have the honor to have with us Rachael Lockhart, librarian at a public school, a seasoned educator, and somebody who's going to explain us in simple terms the new role of library science in schools. Rachael, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. Why don't we start by allowing you to introduce yourself to the audience, kind of letting them know about your career and how do you get to where you are right now.
Okay. Well, I'm Rachael Lockhart. I am from Minnesota originally. I got my undergraduate degree up there at Minnesota State University Mankato in elementary education, and I moved down in 2005 to teach down here. I've taught middle school English for 13 years, and as Antonio said, I am just starting as a new librarian. I have my graduate degree, my master's degree in curriculum instruction and from University of Houston Clear Lake, and I'm currently almost finished with my library science degree from UHCL as well. I have a wonderful husband, Andrew, and beautiful daughter, Annabelle, and they keep me really busy. But that's
And your husband is an educator too, a
Yes.
great educator.
Yes, and my husband, he teaches 6th grade social studies.
That's
so.
awesome. That's awesome. Well, why don't we start talking about the new role of librarians in schools, because I think that's a hot topic out there. We have seen school districts first trying to substitute librarians with underqualified personnel because of the perception or misperception out there that librarians and library science doesn't play a protagonist role anymore in the schools. And then in the past year or so, we have seen important school districts coming back to library science because they have discovered that putting professional librarians in schools increase their standard scores. Mm-hmm. So what can you tell us about the role of librarians in school, the current role of librarians in school with technology and all that?
Okay. Well, like you said, one of the big misperceptions is that librarians check out books and shelve books, which you have to do as well. But honestly, with information and technology becoming so big in today's society, students need help navigating the websites. They need to be able to find credible sources, accurate, relevant sources, and they need someone to help them do that. The problem is because of testing, teachers don't really have the time to spend on research skills. So librarians today spend a lot of time helping students find accurate websites, check for bias, and find ways to present the information in a clear and thoughtful way to everybody. So that way they can get their point across. Additionally, besides research, librarians today also spend a lot of time focusing just on digital literacy in general, as well as continuing to create that love of reading in students. A lot of librarians today have maker spaces where they allow students a material of some sort and they make things from it. One of the best ways to do that is by connecting it to something they read, and have them build something or tinker and spend some time making. They also manage book collections, teach professional development to staff, especially on up-to-date technology that the staff may not know about, and collaborate with teachers. That's the biggest thing. If librarians can collaborate with teachers, then you're really allowing the students to have the best of both worlds. They get the technology from the librarian and the content from their teacher.
Well, and I think you hit great points. So the first point that kind of catch my attention was when you were talking about literacy, because there's some misperception out there that because of the corporation of technology, people don't need to increase literacy anymore, and that's totally false. You still, even if it's a digital book, you still need to know how to read, not to to find main idea, the sequence of events.
Right.
Do you feel that, as a librarian, do you feel that is there a challenge there to make educators in general, administrators and teachers understand that, just because technology is there doesn't mean that the role of librarian has diminished,
Yeah, and I think a lot of people think, well, they can just look it up online. So
Exactly.
why do we need to?
Exactly.
And that's where the digital literacy and creating responsible citizens comes
Correct.
in, teaching them about copyright, about public domain, Creative Commons, things that they can use without breaking copyright, and having the integrity not to use copyrighted material, not copying and pasting, because that happens all the time because the students don't know not to do that.
Absolutely. And what about with this digitalization, which is, big brown brand of digitalization? Do you see virtual libraries and the role of librarians working, from distance? Not necessarily being in a physical location, but having librarians, for example, working for a school who may be in Indonesia or maybe in France, having a role there. Maybe at a distance, not necessarily physical location, because I think with all these digital books and all these digital resources, like I can see, for example, in the doctoral program, where you have to do a lot of research. I don't remember our students in the past year visiting physically the library, but doing a lot of stuff online. So do you see virtual libraries become more and more common?
Well, that would be really neat, honestly.
Exactly.
If you could have librarians and educators communicate around the world, and especially if there's a school that doesn't have a certified librarian,
Correct.
like have somebody like a librarian in a neighboring town
Correct.
come in
As a
and show
consultant
and teach them.
or hiring their services, even though at a distance, to help
help
guidance students
that-
and the staff.
Exactly. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And really with my new school where I'm at, we have 2 campuses. So and we don't talk digitally, but so I kind of am at both campuses. So that's the way with digital libraries, like you could have somebody in Asia talking to somebody in the US.
Correct.
And the certified librarian could be helping the students in the other school.
Correct.
There's actually something really cool called Mystery Skype, where students meet students from across the world, and they have to try and guess the location based on clues through using Skype. So there's some really cool technology out there.
Well, and I think the most important conclusion from that question is pretty much like that the role of librarian has evolved. It hasn't disappeared, and I
Right.
think that's a key point for our school administrators and teachers and superintendents out there to understand that not having librarians, certified librarians or professional librarians in our schools, is gonna pay a price.
Yes.
And we have seen how school districts are now incorporating more and more professional librarians in schools because they saw, okay, my scores somehow were decreasing, and librarians are making our life easier in achieving those goals, academic goals.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, what about another point that you touched was instructional technology, and I think one of the a lot of things I've seen in school districts is, for example, people buying tons of iPads or tons of this cool app that can teach you here and that, but nobody. You see, sometimes there's a disconnect between lesson planning and the resources that they have.
Right.
So what about the role that librarians can play in that?
Okay, well, yeah, and like you said, there's a digital technology, and then there's content, and so you have to make sure that they all kind of overlap. If you might have the content but not know any of the digital stuff, or you could just throw out like, hey, this is a really cool website, but if you don't attach it to your content, it doesn't really do any good. It's just fun.
Correct.
So the librarian can help learn the technology and help the teacher who knows the content and really collaborate to make it a successful lesson where the students are getting the content and synthesizing it through the technology. So it's not just a technology lesson for the sake of having
So it's
technology.
like having a professional development there at your hands all the
Exactly.
time.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Now, another topic that I think is really important that we talk about is motivating millennials to read.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm the father of two teenagers. You're a mother too. So, and you're in the school full time. You have been teaching teenagers for years. Reading has a lot of competition nowadays.
Yes,
with
absolutely.
Netflix, with the phones, and so how do we motivate millennials to read? What about that challenge?
Well, I think, and I would say to motivate anybody, not just millennials, because there's a lot of people that I went to school with that are, I hate reading, I hate books. And the trick is finding books for those people that they can connect to, and they see themselves in the book and can see the world around them. So finding ways to make connections with that book. Once the people find a connection in a book, they're in. They want to find more books where they see themselves, where they're saying to themselves, I am not the only person that's going through this right now. This person went through it too. Oh my gosh, look, there's somebody just like me. They're going through it. So finding that passion for reading really comes from making connections. And then the empathy comes from making connections to the world around you. Reading about other countries and other cultures and seeing what everybody else has to offer and not looking at it like, oh, I should be not talk to them or afraid of them because they're different. Instead, getting to know them and learning about their culture through books.
So as librarians, do you guys have techniques to survey students' interest in terms of, so you can have at your disposal certain books that the teenagers or teenagers may be interested in reading for with different reading levels. Do you guys have do you guys survey students, or do you guys do a qualitative or do focus group? How do you guys get to develop your bank of books, so to say, that meet the interest of the students?
Gotcha. Well, I think the main thing is to know your students and know your population. And find books that will connect with the culture of the students that you serve. But there are multiple ways to find great books and find out. I've done reading surveys as a teacher, as a reading teacher, my entire career. I love surveying the kids and finding out what they like to read. But on top of that, there are great conferences like TLA where you can go and learn about the newest books. There are YALSA has the top award winners for different genres, and so those are always great go-to books when choosing books, because they're ones that students have connected or that they've won for a reason. They've won a prize for a reason. Not all of them are based on literature. Some are the best evidence of this culture.
Correct.
So there are some great awards out there and great lists of books that really connect to students.
That can fit into students. Now, before we talk about recommendations, what about your transition from the classroom to a full-time librarian? What are for our audience out there, potential teacher who may be looking at us and may say, I want to be a full-time librarian. How was that process, and what are the things that you have enjoyed, and what are the things that you have struggled at this point?
Okay. Well, like I said, I've only been a librarian for about a month or so, or a couple weeks. So, but definitely having a reading background has really helped, or teaching reading. So I already, and having my master's in curriculum instruction, because I've already taken a lot of reading classes. So I already know about a lot of good books that are out there for students, and I've always kept up with that. So that is a bonus, and I think that's went well in finding books. The biggest difference is how busy I am all the time. And it's not like with teaching, what's expected. You're like, okay, I have to teach this content. With library, you're in charge of 18 different things, and this has to get done, and this has to get done, and you have to do a lesson, and you have to set up your makerspace, and you have to, type up a scavenger hunt.
And different grade levels.
And I'm working at a pre-K through 12 campus.
Oh, wow.
So I, adjusting, making different lessons for the different grade levels.
So you have to be in the floor with your kindergarten one time, and then the other time you have to be cool with your teenagers.
Exactly. I was just saying that to my kids today, or to some people today, about how switching from pre-K to 4th grade, like your tone of voice, how you present things, and then going to 7th grade, and then going, it's crazy. But it's so much fun. If you don't mind being busy and you're passionate about it, I think it's totally worth it. I love it.
What about the way that teachers perceive you, though? Do they perceive you like a support system, or they perceive you like another administrator? Because I think sometimes librarians may be perceived as another assistant principal, or they, and if you're not careful, then you can be seen like another AP. So what are you doing to let them know, okay, I'm a support system here. I'm not here to evaluate you, but I'm here to help you.
Gotcha. My biggest thing is I just let the teachers know, like, I'm here to help you. Like, I'm not in charge of you. I don't have any power over you. I just want to help. So my biggest I talked to all the teachers right from the get-go and said, if you want to plan a lesson with me and want some ideas, let me know. I sent out an email right at the beginning of the year. If you want to come in and work with us in the library, if you want me to do research skills, just let me know. Like, I'm here for you. I'm here to help you and the kids. Like, I'm not, and luckily at my school, a lot of people do view me as a help, like as somebody who helps them as a support system. But I know at other campuses that does have a tendency of happening when they're given duties and roles that kind of put them in that administrative role.
But it's like disciplinarians, or they had other duties as assigned.
Exactly, and that can kind of take away from that, because then the teachers look at you like they can't come to you. So the best thing is just relaying to the teachers that you're there, and try to lead from the middle. Lead, like, I'm here with you, but being a leader in showing them good, good lesson planning, good technology resources.
Correct.
That kind of
Helping with the lesson. And so that leads me to the other question. So what recommendations do you have for new teachers that may be looking at us right now, or even seasoned, veteran teachers who want to start incorporating library science or to their lesson planning, start working more cooperatively with their librarians, and they don't know how? What type of recommendations do you have?
I'd say the biggest thing is just talk to your librarian and ask them, tell them, hey, I really want to do this lesson. I was wondering if you had any ideas for technology that we could incorporate. Could you work with me on it? Do you have time to do that? So talking to the librarian is key, because they can pick out the best, librarians can pick out the best sites for your students to learn or use. I found all of these amazing primary sources for history this summer in one of my classes. It was amazing. I didn't even know they're out there. So I was talking to some of my friends that are social studies teachers, and they were like, no, I haven't heard of that, and then they told me some good sites so I could share them. So it's just kind of about networking, and so really just ask. We can also come up with ideas. My husband and I, we collaborated last year, and he wanted to do something with economic indicators. So we made trading cards and with the different economic indicators for different countries, and then they printed them out, and the kids played economic war. So if their economic indicators beat that one, then they get both cards, like the game of card game war. And they loved it. It was great. And it only happened because we talked and we planned. And I said, well, how about this? And he said, well, how about this? And how about this? And so throwing ideas back and forth, you're able to come up with a third idea that nobody knew existed. You come up with, like, he has some ideas, I have some, and so by going back and forth, you find ideas that you wouldn't have even thought of by yourself.
Correct.
So really just talk to the librarian. They're more than happy to help, and
approaching.
And that's what they want to do. I went into the librarian field wanting to collaborate with teachers.
And I think if you're a new teacher, if you're a veteran teacher, you may have done it already. You may be trying to maybe do it again if you have never done it, try to do it the first time. But if you're a new teacher, I think it could be such an important and critical thing for your career, because you will have a mentor there for free.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, especially with new techniques and new things to incorporate in your lesson plan, new activities. Now, what about the administrators? What about recommendation for campus administrative principal, assistant principals, or superintendents looking at us right now, and who are still dubious about the role that library science may be playing in the schools. What can you tell them? What recommendation will be given in terms of research and in terms of the role that librarian science may play on increasing their scores and actually keeping their jobs.
Right.
Helping
right.
them keep their job. Yeah.
Well, as you said, there's a lot of research out there. There was data taken from across the country in over 60 states. Or 60 states, sorry. Over 22 states, 60 studies they did that showed that having a full-time certified librarian actually increased standardized test score and helped students learn more.
Wow.
So I think the number one thing for district administrators is just to make sure that every campus has a full-time certified librarian. Like, don't let it be an option. You're going to have one, because a library aide, while they are helpful and they can check out books and shelve books and do that, they haven't taken the classes to learn what they need to learn to collaborate and learned all the resources. They're not trained to, so they're not the same thing as having
they won't have the same
librarian.
academic impact that the
Exactly.
professional librarian will have.
Exactly. And on top of that, like administrators in the building, the best thing they can do is have their librarians do staff development. Like, do staff development on the new technology that's out there, especially like relating to content and different things. Like, show, hey, I found this new site, check it out, this is how you use it.
What about librarians participating in the PLCs, in the professional learning communities? Have you seen that as a tendency in schools trying to, or do you think it's a good idea? Because they have nowadays you see PLCs, professional learning communities. You see it in department levels in high schools. You see it in grade level PLCs. Do you think that librarians should participate on those, at least, if not all the time, once in a while, to have an input?
Yeah, I think that'd be great, because that's where a lot of your collaborating comes in.
Correct.
So if the librarian can come in and work with whatever group it is, maybe it's a grade level group, maybe it's a content group, but if they can come in and give ideas, even so, instead of doing like a whole staff development, maybe come in and give them a couple, show them a couple of websites that their content or their grade level might like. So that way they can use them or find projects that they can do together to make great lessons for the kids.
Well, and I think the main conclusion is that librarians are not a luxury tax for schools, but are actually a necessity to reach their academic goals. Not having a librarian is risky and it's not good for kids.
Yeah.
That's But Rachel, I want to thank you one more time for being with us today. Folks out there, remember that we have this video and many others in Antonio Corrales YouTube channel. Let's talk about education with Antonio Corrales and Sterling Evaluation and Assessment.com. Please help somebody today and have a good day.
Thank you.